I have spent 47 cycles serving aboard the Galactic Council's enforcement vessels, and in that time I have witnessed countless species demonstrate their particular brand of combat prowess, the Krillians with their quad arms that could crush steel, the Venth, who could breathe poison and walk through fire, the Morlach warriors, standing 3 m tall, their exoskeletons harder than any armor we could manufacture, but humans, oh, by the 7 moons of Targ, humans were something else entirely. My name is Crix, and I am what your species might call a tactical observer. My role aboard the CSS Valiant Dawn was to assess, record, and analyze combat situations for the Council archives. Boring work, mostly 17 different appendages typing away on 17 different data pads while everyone else got to do the actual exciting parts. But that particular solar cycle, that was the day I learned why the galaxy should never ever mistake human restraint for human weakness. It started in the most mundane way possible. We had docked at Station Helix 9, a trading outpost near the Outer Rim territories, standard resupply mission. Captain Voreth, a Krillian with all the personality of a malfunctioning waste disposal unit, had granted shore leave to half the crew. I was reviewing supply manifests when she walked past my station. Lieutenant Kira Torres, human, female, approximately 1.7 m tall, which made her absolutely tiny compared to most of the crew. She had dark hair, pulled back in what humans call a ponytail, and these strange markings on her arms that humans called tattoos. Her species considered them decorative. I found them fascinating. One appeared to be a bird made of flames. Another showed symbols in an ancient earth language. Hey, 6, she said, pausing by my workstation. Her voice had that peculiar warmth that humans seem to inject into everything. You coming down to the station? Me and a few others are grabbing food at that Ularian place on level 7. I waved 2 of my appendages in what I hoped approximated a human gesture of decline. Too much work, Lieutenant. Someone has to make sure we don't accidentally order 50,000 kilos of the wrong plasma coils again. She laughed. That sound I had learned was called laughter. Humans did it when they found something amusing. That was one time, and technically it was an Embril who messed up the order, not me. You approved it. Fair point. She tapped her fingers on my console. Another human gesture I never quite understood. Well, if you change your mind, you know where to find us. Try to take a break at some point, okay? All work and no rest makes Crix a very grumpy observer. I clicked my mandibles in amusement. I am always grumpy, Lieutenant. It is my natural state. Yeah, but we like you anyway. She smiled, showing those flat white teeth that humans had, then headed toward the airlock. I watched her go, then returned to my manifests. Just another day, just another shore leave. I had no idea that everything was about to go sideways in the most spectacular fashion possible. The first indication of trouble came approximately 2 hours later. My communicator chirped and Captain Voreth's face appeared on the screen. He looked annoyed, which was different from his usual expression of being extremely annoyed. Crix, get down to station Helix 9, level 7, sector 12 now. I felt a flutter of concern in my primary digestive sac. Sir, what is happening? There has been an incident. The human is involved. He paused. Bring medical supplies and possibly a legal advocate. Oh no, oh no, no, no. Humans were still relatively new to the Galactic Council, having only joined 30 solar cycles ago. Every incident involving them created mountains of paperwork, mountains. I grabbed my equipment harness and scurried toward the airlock as fast as my 17 legs could carry me. The scene that greeted me on level 7 was, shall we say, tense. A crowd had gathered in a rough circle near a food establishment. In the center stood Lieutenant Tors, and even from a distance I could see the change in her posture. Gone was the relaxed, friendly human from earlier. Her shoulders were squared, her hands were positioned at her sides, loose but ready. Her face had transformed into something hard and cold. Facing her was a Braxian enforcer, tall, heavily muscled, with thick gray skin and tusks that protruded from his lower jaw. He wore the markings of the Syndicate, which meant trouble. The Syndicate was what humans called organized crime, a network of smugglers, slavers, and mercenaries that operated in the gray zones between council jurisdiction. Behind the Braxian stood 3 more of his kind, all similarly marked. Behind Tor stood 3 other crew members. From the Valiant Dawn, Olarian engineer named Pixes, a young Venth navigator called Solace, and a human male, Corporal Marcus Webb, who looked just as dangerously calm as Tor's. Captain Vorath stood to one side, his forearms crossed, watching. Station security hovered nearby, but made no move to intervene. Nobody wanted to get between a Braxian enforcer and his prey. I scuttled closer, my recording appendages already documenting everything. The Braxian was speaking, his voice a low rumble that carried across the space. I said, "Apologize. Your little friend here bumped into me. Spilled my drink, that costs." Tor's voice when she spoke was quiet, controlled, but there was something underneath it, something that made my sensory organs tingle with warning. Pydex already apologized twice. It was an accident. We even offered to buy you a replacement drink. Not good enough. The Braxian took a step forward. He towered over Tors by at least half a meter, his hands flexed, showing claws designed for rending flesh. "I want compensation, real compensation. Your friend pays or you pay, your choice." Human, here is where I expected Tors to back down. Braxians were known throughout the galaxy as brutal fighters. They hired themselves out as enforcers and muscled precisely because of their reputation for violence. Human, small and soft-skinned, would be no match. Tors, however, did not back down. Instead, she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Walk away," she said softly. "This doesn't have to escalate." The Braxian laughed. His companions laughed with him. "Escalate, little human. You have no idea what escalation looks like. Now are you going to pay, or am I going to take compensation from your hide?" Tors glanced back at Corporal Webb. Something passed between them, some kind of silent communication that humans seemed capable of. Webb gave the tiniest nod. When Tors looked back at the Braxian, her entire demeanor had shifted again. The cold hardness was still there, but now there was something else, something predatory. "Last chance, turn around, walk away. Forget this happened, or what, or I show you why." Humans invented the phrase, "Proportional response is optional." The Braxian's fist came down like a meteor strike. "I will pause here to explain something about combat. As observed by the Galactic Council, most species fight in predictable patterns Based on their biology, Krillians use their multiple arms for grappling, Venth, employ their natural toxins, Morlax, rely on their superior size and armor. These patterns are documented, analyzed, and taught at militaremies across the galaxy. Human combat patterns, however, were still being studied. They were new to the Council, and their performance in simulations had been adequate but not exceptional. They were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most heavily armed or armored. What I witnessed in the next 30 seconds completely shattered every assumption I had ever held. Tors moved. Know that word does not do it justice. She flowed. The Braxian's fist, which should have connected with her skull and ended the fight immediately, struck only air. Tors had shifted her weight, turned her body, and somehow allowed that massive fist to pass within millimeters of her face without touching her. Before the Braxian could recover, Tors struck. Her palm drove upward into the underside of his extended arm, hitting a nerve cluster that I did not even know Braxians possessed. The enforcer's arm went temporarily numb. His eyes widened. In surprise, Tors did not stop. Her other hand came around in a tight arc, striking the Braxian's throat, not hard enough to crush his windpipe. No, this was measured, calculated, just enough force to make breathing difficult, to induce panic, to create an opening. She dropped low, sweeping her leg behind his knee. Physics did the rest. The massive Braxian toppled backward, and Tors rode him down, maintaining control the entire way. By the time his back hit the station floor, she had secured his arm in some kind of lock that made him bellow in pain when he tried to move. "Stay down," she said calmly. He did not stay down. Species pride, probably, or stupidity, maybe both. He tried to surge upward, tried to use his superior mass to throw her off. Tors adjusted her grip. There was a sound, a wet pop, that made several onlookers flinch. Braxian screamed, not a roar of anger, an actual scream of agony. I said, "Stay down." This time he listened. The three other Braxians, seeing their leader defeated in approximately 15 seconds, decided to press their advantage. This is where Corporal Webb stepped forward, along with something I had not noticed before. Tors had apparently been carrying a weapon, not an energy pistol or a pulse rifle, something primitive, a collapsible metal baton, the kind that extended with a flick of the wrist. She rose from the fallen enforcer, baton in hand, and faced the three incoming attackers. Webb positioned himself on her left flank. The two humans, small and unimpressive by galactic standards, faced down three enraged Braxians. What happened next was not a fight, it was a clinic. The first Braxian to reach them swung a wild haymaker at Webb. The corporal ducked under it, stepped inside the larger being's guard, and drove his elbow into the Braxian's solar plexus. While the enforcer was trying to remember how breathing worked, Webb grabbed his arm, turned, and used the Braxian's own momentum to flip him over. His hip, the enforcer crashed into a nearby vendor stall, destroying someone's display of imported fruits. Tors engaged the other two simultaneously. Herbert flicked out, catching one Braxian across the knee with a crack that echoed through the corridor. He went down howling. The third lunged at her, trying to tackle her to the ground. She sidestepped, brought her baton down on the back of his skull with precisely measured force, and when he stumbled Past her, she kicked the back of his other knee. He went down face first. She was on him in an instant, baton pressed across the back of his neck in a control hold. 28 seconds. I had been counting. 28 seconds from the first punch to complete dominance of the situation. 4 Braxian enforcers, each outweighing the humans by at least 40 kilos and possessing natural weapons that could tear through standard armor, all 4 on the ground, incapacitated. Torres and Webb stood amid the wreckage, barely breathing hard. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even Captain Voreth looked impressed, and that was saying something. Station security finally decided to move in, but they approached cautiously, weapons lowered, clearly uncertain whether they should be arresting the humans or thanking them. Torres collapsed her baton and returned it to her belt. We were defending ourselves and our crew, she said clearly, addressing both the security team and the crowd. These individuals threatened us, refused multiple opportunities to walk away, and initiated violence. Everything was proportional and necessary. We await council judgment on the matter. Her words were formal, practiced as if she had been trained exactly what to say in this situation, which I would later learn she had been. Human military doctrine apparently included extensive instruction on rules of engagement and legal frameworks. They really had thought through every angle of integration with galactic society. Captain Voreth stepped forward. These humans are members of my crew and were acting in lawful self-defense. I will submit a full report to council. Authorities snorts. Station security, please process these Braxians for initiating unprovoked violence and identify their syndicate affiliations. The head of station security, O'Larian, with graying head tentacles, nodded slowly. Of course, Captain, though I must say, he gestured at the groaning enforcers, I have never seen Braxians taken down so efficiently. Torres shrugged. They gave us no choice. We tried to de-escalate. Indeed you did. Multiple witnesses confirmed this. The security chief looked at Torres with something approaching respect. Lieutenant, if you ever tire of military service, station security would be honored to extend an offer of employment. She smiled, some of the hardness leaving her face. I appreciate that, Chief, but I am happy where I am. As station security began hauling away the injured Braxians, I approached Torres. My appendages were trembling slightly, adrenaline analog still flooding my system. Lieutenant, that was extraordinary. She looked down at me. Up close I could see the slight sheen of perspiration on her forehead, the only sign that she had exerted herself. Just training cricks. Nothing special, nothing special. You defeated 4 Braxian enforcers in under 30 seconds. 28 seconds. Corporal Webb interjected helpfully. New personal record. Torres elbowed him. Show off. You started it. They were joking, actual joking moments. After a violent confrontation, I could not fathom it. How did you do that? The speed, the precision, the technique. Where did you learn such combat skills? Torres and Webb exchanged another one of those looks. Then Torres sighed. Cricks. Do you know why humans are actually so careful about not starting fights? I clicked my mandibles uncertainly. Because your species values peace. Well, yes, but also because we are really absurdly good at fighting. She gestured around the corridor. Every human child, from the time they are old enough to Walk learned some form of self-defense. Different cultures have different systems. I studied something called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Krav Maga, Web. Here is a boxer and a wrestler. We have thousands of different fighting systems, developed over millennia of warfare. Webb nodded. Before we met other species, we only had each other to fight, so we got creative. We studied leverage, anatomy, psychology, tactics. We turned combat into both an art and a science. But you are so small, I protested. Compared to most galactic species, humans are not physically imposing. Torres smiled that predatory smile. Again, exactly, which means we learned very long time ago that size doesn't matter if you know where to strike and how to move. Technique beats strength. Speed beats power. Intelligence beats all of it. Captain Voreth approached our group. Lieutenant Torres, Corporal Webb. Excellent demonstration of restraint and proportional force. Well done, however. This incident will require extensive documentation. Crix, I assume you recorded everything. I waved my primary appendages. Every moment, Captain. Good, we will need it for the council review. He paused, looking at Torres with what might have been approval, though I suspect the council will find little to criticize. You gave multiple warnings, attempted de-escalation, and used only necessary force. Textbook response. Thank you, sir. As we began the long walk back to the ship, I found myself staying close to Torres. My curiosity was overwhelming. My usual professional detachment. Lieutenant, may I ask you something? Sure, Crix. The way you moved, the precision of your strikes, the control you maintained, that level of skill must take cycles to develop. How long have you been training? She thought for a moment. I started martial arts when I was 6 years old, so about 20 years now. 20 years, nearly half her lifespan, dedicated to perfecting combat skills. And this is common among humans. Pretty common, yeah. Some start younger, some start older, but most humans learn at least basic self-defense. Our history made it necessary. She paused at an observation window looking out at the stars. You know what is interesting, Crix? Now that we are part of the Galactic Council, now that we have allies and laws and systems to protect us, we need those skills less than ever before. Then, why maintain them? Because the universe is not always fair or predictable. Because predators like those Braxians exist. Because sometimes, no matter how much you want peace, someone forces your hand. She turned to look at me. We don't start fights, Crix, but we will absolutely finish them. Her words stayed with me as we returned to the ship. They echoed in my mind as I compiled my report, and they resonated even more strongly when 3 days later we received a priority transmission from Council Command. Apparently, the Braxians we had encountered were not just random enforcers. They were mid-level operatives in a major syndicate cell that had been trafficking in illegal weapons and, far worse, abducted persons from various species. Station security, using identification provided during processing, had been able to trace connections to a much larger network, and someone high up in that network was very unhappy that their operatives had been humiliated by a small human female and her equally small human companion, which meant this story was far from over, but that would come later. For now, I had my recording, I had my report, and I had a new understanding of the species called humans. They did not start fights, but When forced to fight, they showed exactly why their planet had forged them through millennia of conflict into something both terrifying and magnificent. The transmission arrived during third shift when most of the crew was either sleeping or maintaining minimal operational status. I was awake. Naturally, sleep cycles were for species with simpler neurological structures. I was reviewing supply inventories when the priority alert flashed across every console on the bridge. Captain Voreth materialized from his quarters within minutes, still fastening his duty harness. Report, Lieutenant Graves, the night watch officer, a human male with pale skin and nervous fingers, pulled up the transmission. Sir, we have incoming communication from the Syndicate. They are demanding we turn over Lieutenant Torres and Corporal Webb for crimes against Syndicate personnel. Bareth's mandibles clicked in what I had learned was his version of a derisive snort. Display it. The screen filled with the face of a Korvox, one of the reptilian species from the outer systems. His scales were dark purple, denoting high rank within their social hierarchy. His eyes cold and calculating, fixed on the camera with unsettling intensity. I am Commander Sithix of the Red Claw Syndicate. 3 days ago, 2 of your crew members assaulted 4 of my operatives on Station Helix 9. This aggression cannot stand. Deliver the humans to coordinates I will provide or face consequences that will extend far beyond your small vessel. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Then Voreth began to laugh. It was a harsh, barking sound that made several crew members jump. This fool actually believes we will comply. Someone wake Lieutenant Torres. She needs to see this. 10 minutes later, Torres arrived on the bridge, still pulling on her uniform jacket. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she looked considerably less intimidating than she had during the confrontation, at least until her eyes focused on the screen and Graves replayed the message. By the time it finished, her expression had gone flat empty. It was somehow more frightening than her combat face had been. Permission to speak freely, Captain, she asked quietly. Granted. This is not about the fight. Those enforcers were low-level muscle. Nobody threatens a council vessel over 4 grunts who started a bar fight and lost. She crossed her arms. This is about something else. They are probing, testing response times, willingness to negotiate, probably trying to identify defensive capabilities. Voreth tilted his head, regarding her with his primary eyes. Explain your reasoning. Sir, I spent 2 years working with human intelligence services before transferring to council forces. This pattern is classic organized crime behavior. They are not actually after Webb and me. They are gathering information, likely preparing for a larger operation in this sector. She paused. We need to inform council command immediately and request a tactical analysis of recent Syndicate activity in surrounding systems. I found myself impressed yet again. Not only was she a formidable combatant, but she possessed strategic thinking that went far beyond simple fighting. Lieutenant Torres is correct, I interjected, pulling up data streams on my console. I have been monitoring local communications traffic. There has been a 17% increase in encrypted Syndicate transmissions in this quadrant over the past 20 days. Why did you not report this earlier? Boreth demanded. Because 17% is within normal fluctuation parameters, it only becomes significant in context of recent events. I displayed the data patterns. However, if we examine frequency of transmission rather than just volume, we see something interesting. Communication spiked precisely 4 hours after our confrontation on the station. Tors moved to my console, studying the data. Her fingers moved across the display with practiced ease. They were already here, already watching. The bar fight was not random. They wanted to test us. She looked up at Voreth. Sir, I recommend we go to tactical alert and start running counter-surveillance protocols. If they are gathering intelligence, we should return the favor. Before Voreth could respond, alarms shrieked across the bridge. Graves shouted, multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace, distance 30,000 km and closing. The main view screen shifted to tactical display. 6 vessels, medium-sized freighters by their signatures, formed up in an attack pattern around our position. Not council ships, not registered to any legitimate corporation. Syndicate raiders, Boreth growled. Battle stations, all hands to combat positions. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. I scurried to my emergency station, appendages flying across multiple consoles as I began recording everything. This was going to be either a very detailed report or a very permanent final entry in my archives. Tors was already at the weapons console, replacing the Eularian officer who scrambled to secondary systems. Captain, permission to coordinate defensive fire. You have tactical experience, 3 combat deployments with human naval forces before joining the council. I know my way around a weapons grid. Her hands moved across the controls. Their formation is sloppy. See how the 2 ships on the left flank are 7 seconds out of sync with their companions. That is an exploitable gap. Voreth studied the display, then nodded. You have weapons control. Show me what humans do when someone picks a fight. They cannot win. Tors smiled, not the predatory combat smile, something sharper, more calculating. Gladly, sir. Graves, swing us 15 degrees starboard, cut main engines to 60%, and angle deflector shields to maximum forward concentration. That will leave our aft section vulnerable. Graves protested. Do it. Trust me. The Valiant Dawn shifted course. The syndicate vessels, reading this as an attempt to flee, accelerated to intercept. Their formation tightened. All 6 ships focusing on our apparently retreating vessel. Distance to weapons range, Tors asked calmly. 20 seconds at current velocity. Perfect. Crix, are you recording this? Every moment, Lieutenant. Good. Future tactical students are going to love this. Her fingers danced across the controls. Graves, on my mark. Emergency stop and rotate 180 degrees. Helm, I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that? The human pilot, a young woman named Cole, nodded. Ready on your mark, Lieutenant. The syndicate ships closed in. Energy weapons charging, preparing to our engines and board us. Standard pirate tactics. Disable board, steal everything valuable. Space the crew. Quick, efficient, profitable, except Tors was counting on them following exactly that playbook. Mark, the Valiant Dawn killed all forward momentum in a maneuver that would have turned my internal organs into soup if not for inertial dampeners. We rotated on our axis, bringing our full weapons array to bear on the pursuing ships, and because they had been accelerating to catch us, they now found themselves flying directly into our firing solution at maximum velocity. Fire, Torres said simply. Our pulse cannons opened up at point-blank range. By space combat standards, the lead Syndicate vessel, shields configured for long-range engagement, took the full barrage directly to its forward section. Armor plating vaporized, internal systems detonated, the ship went dark, tumbling away, trailing debris. Reload time 8 seconds, target the ship. Immediately behind the leader, they are trying to scatter, Tor's voice remained eerily calm. Cole, pitch us up 30 degrees, let's put them between us and their companions, make them worry about friendly fire. Cole complied, and suddenly the tactical situation had reversed completely. The Syndicate ships, expecting easy prey, found themselves facing a vessel that had not only refused to run, but had turned their own aggression against them. Second target locked, Torres announced. Firing, another Syndicate raider took critical damage, this time to their engine assemblies. They began spinning out of control, unable to maintain formation or targeting solutions. The remaining 4 ships finally realized they had made a terrible mistake. They broke formation, trying to spread out and surround us. Classic pack hunter tactics. Torres had apparently anticipated this as well. Graves, activate our distress beacon. Full council emergency frequency. Let's invite some friends to this party. Cole. Evasive pattern Delta 7, keep us mobile. Weapons, I need you to cycle between targets. Don't let any of them get a clean shot. We are not trying to win. We are trying to survive until help arrives. How do you know help will arrive? I asked, my appendages trembling as another volley of enemy fire splashed across our shield. Because this is council space and we have been transmitting our position for the last 5 minutes. Someone will respond. She targeted another raider, fired, missed. As they jinx sideways, Void, take it. These pilots are better than the first 2. The battle devolved into a swirling melee. The Valiant Dawn was a patrol vessel designed for versatility rather than pure combat power. Against 4 dedicated raiders, we were outgunned. But Torres kept us moving, kept them guessing, never staying predictable long enough for them to coordinate their attacks. I watched her work, in it reminded me of the fight on the station. The same calculated precision, the same refusal to panic, the same ability to turn an opponent's expectations against them. Shield strength at 40%, Graves called out. We cannot sustain this much longer. We don't have to. Torres pointed at the tactical display. Look at their positioning. They are herding us toward that asteroid cluster, probably planning to trap us and pound us at leisure. She grinned. Cole, take us into the asteroid's maximum speed, Lieutenant. That is suicide. We will be smashed to pieces. No, we won't, because I trained on asteroid field navigation in the Sol system, and these raiders, I am betting they did not. She looked over her shoulder at Captain Vorath. Sir, your call. Trust me or overrule me. Vorath's 4 eyes regarded her for a long moment. Then he clicked his mandibles. Proceed, Lieutenant. Let us see if human insanity translates into tactical brilliance. Cole took us into the asteroids at speeds that made my sensory organs invert. Rocks the size of buildings flashed past our hull with clearances measured in meters. Torres coordinated with Cole calling out vectors and trajectories, using our weapons to shatter smaller asteroids into clouds of debris that served as improvised chaff. The Syndicate ships followed, arrogant, or desperate enough to believe they could match our maneuvers. The first one clipped an asteroid while trying to maintain pursuit. The collision tore off their portside weapons array, sending the ship spiraling into a larger rock. That finished the job. 3 ships remaining. They spread out trying to box us in from different vectors. Tors frowned, studying the display. They are adapting smart. Cole, how much longer until we clear this field? 90 seconds at current speed. We won't make it. They will have firing solutions before then. Taurus drummed her fingers on the console, thinking. Then her eyes widened. Unless we give them something else to worry about. 6. Do we still have those mining charges in cargo bay? 3. Yes, but those are scheduled for delivery to the mining colony on Prolith. 6. Why do you need to know about mining charges? Because mining charges are designed to fracture asteroids from the inside. She was already pulling up cargo bay controls, and we are about to fly very close to a very large, very conveniently positioned asteroid. She targeted the rock in question, a massive chunk of iron nickel, or roughly the size of a small moon. If we hit that with our mining charges at precisely the right moment, the fragmentation pattern should create a debris field that spreads perpendicular to our current trajectory. I understood immediately. You want to create artificial cover. Better, I want to create an artificial minefield. Those fragments will be moving fast enough to shred shield systems. She looked at Vorath again. Sir, this will mean we cannot complete our delivery contract to Prolith 6. I will worry about contracts if we survive. The next 2 minutes, execute your plan. Tors programmed the mining charges for remote detonation, then ejected the entire cargo container on a trajectory that would intersect with the target asteroid. Cole, as soon as those charges blow, I need you to take us into a sharp spiral away from the debris pattern. The raiders won't have time to react. They will either have to break off pursuit or fly through the fragmentation field. Understood. We watched the cargo container arc toward the asteroid. The Syndicate ships, seeing us jettison cargo, probably assumed we were trying to lighten our load for more speed. They closed in, energy weapons charging for what they clearly believed would be killing shots. Tors waited, counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Detonate. The mining charges, designed to fracture solid rock, tore the asteroid apart from within. Thousands of fragments, some the size of shuttles, others the size of my smallest appendage, exploded outward in an expanding sphere of high velocity projectiles. Now, Cole, get us out of here. The Valiant Dawn twisted away, riding the edge of the debris field. Behind us, the Syndicate raiders ran directly into the storm of fragments, their shields already weakened from sustained combat, overloaded almost immediately. I watched on sensors as one ship simply disintegrated under the impact of dozens of large fragments. Another lost power and began drifting. The third managed to survive, but was so badly damaged that they broke off, limping away on emergency power. Silence settled over the bridge. We had done it against 6 raiders with no backup, using nothing but tactical thinking and improvisation. We had won. Graves broke the silence. First, Lieutenant Tors, that was the most reckless, insane, brilliant piece of tactical thinking I have ever witnessed. Torres slumped in her chair, exhaustion finally showing on her face. It was the only option. Sometimes you cannot fight fair because fair means dying. You fight smart, you fight dirty, and you make absolutely sure you fight to win. Captain Vorath approached her station. You saved this ship and everyone aboard. The council will hear of this. He paused. Tell me, Lieutenant, do all humans fight like you? She looked up at him, and I saw something in her expression, not pride, not arrogance, something sadder. Sir, every human has a history written in blood. Our planet made us fight for everything, fight each other, fight nature, fight extinction, events and ice ages and predators that wanted to eat us. We learned to fight smart because we could not always fight strong. She gestured at the view screen, where the remains of the syndicate ships drifted among the asteroids. We don't want to fight, we really truly don't, but when something forces our hand, we remember 10,000 years of survival instinct and tactical evolution. Over the next hour, 3 council patrol vessels arrived in response to our distress call. They secured the area, captured the surviving syndicate personnel, and began the process of salvaging evidence for prosecution. The commander of the response force, a Venth admiral named Kor, came aboard personally to debrief us. She listened to our account, reviewed the tactical recordings I had compiled, and studied the engagement data. Then she looked at Torres with something approaching awe. Lieutenant, I have commanded vessels for 30 solar cycles. I have engaged in over 100 combat scenarios, and I have never seen a more effective demonstration of tactical improvisation under pressure. Your species has been part of the Council for only 30 cycles. How is it that you possess such advanced combat doctrine? Torres exchanged glances with Webb, who had joined us for the debrief. Then she sighed. Admiral, humans developed complex warfare thousands of years before we achieved spaceflight. By the time we left our planet, we had already perfected every conceivable form of combat: ground warfare, naval warfare, aerial warfare, electronic warfare, psychological warfare. We had elaborate means and training systems and historical analyses of thousands of battles across our entire history. Webb nodded. We wrote books about strategy, created simulations, studied what worked and what failed. War was not just something we did, it was something we analyzed, refined, and passed down through generations. By the time we met other species, we had a 10,000-year head start on tactical thinking. Admiral Kor absorbed this information with visible discomfort. You are saying that humans are a species evolutionarily optimized for warfare? Not optimized, Torres corrected. Experienced. There is a difference. We did not evolve to fight better than other species. We evolved on a planet that forced us to develop intelligence as our primary survival tool, and then we used that intelligence to turn combat into both science and art. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. This information will need to be shared with Council Command. Many species have underestimated humans, viewing you as small and physically weak. This perception may need substantial revision. Torres smiled tiredly. Admiral, we are small, we are weak compared to Krillians or Morlachs or Braxians. We are tiny and fragile, but we learned a long time ago that the biggest fighter does not always win. The smartest fighter Wins, the most adaptable fighter wins. The fighter who refuses to give up, who finds a way when there is no way, who turns disadvantages into advantages. That fighter wins. 3 days later, the syndicate cell that had threatened us was dismantled in a coordinated council operation. The evidence recovered from the raider ships led to arrests across 4 systems. Commander Scythics, the Korvox who had threatened us, was captured trying to flee into uncharted space. I completed my report on the incident. It ran to over 300 pages and included detailed analysis of human combat doctrine, psychological profiles, and recommendations for integration of human tactical thinking into broader council military training. But the part that I kept returning to, the section I revised 17 times before submitting, was my conclusion. It read, humans do not start fights. This is not weakness or cowardice. It is wisdom born from painful experience. They know better than perhaps any species in the galaxy that violence has costs that extend far beyond the immediate conflict. They seek peace not because they fear war, but because they understand its true price. However, when forced to fight, humans demonstrate capabilities that should give any potential aggressor serious pause. They fight with intelligence, creativity, and a stubborn refusal to accept defeat that is both admirable and terrifying. The galaxy would do well to remember that human restraint is a choice, not a limitation, and when that restraint is removed by the actions of others, humans show exactly why their planet forged them into survivors. Lieutenant Kira Torres received a council commendation for tactical excellence. Corporal Marcus Webb was promoted to sergeant. The crew of the Valiant Dawn gained a reputation that preceded us to every port and station we visited thereafter, and I learned that sometimes the smallest species can cast the longest shadow, that underestimating humans was a mistake nobody should make twice, and that when humans said they did not start fights, what they really meant was we know how to end them, because they had spent 10,000 years learning exactly